With the use of the Force ability, known as Force Healing, prevalently used over the past few months in the Mandalorian TV series and in Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, a number of questions have arisen regarding this ability and how exactly it works within the lore. While we can look at the universality of this ability among Jedi and the parameters of its use within canon in a future video, which I'll admit will likely result in speculation and hypothesizing on my part based upon what now exists within the current canon lore, I think we can provide some more concrete answers to these questions as they exist in Legends. When looking at the limitations of Force healing in Legends, some of the more frequent questions I see relate to examples of why Anakin couldn't simply heal his mother Shmi in Episode 2, and why Obi-Wan couldn't heal Qui-Gon in Episode 1, and even to less known examples within the lore like Ahsoka's inability to heal Jedi Master Peel. They're great questions, especially since we've seen Rey rather easily heal Kylo Ren recently, and Obi-Wan used a type of Force healing on Luke in Episode 4. Although we'll leave some of the canon questions and lore to the side here, in describing some of the known lore that exists in Legends, I think we can get a good idea of why Jedi couldn't simply heal or save others in every situation, specifically addressing the Anakin Shmi and Obi-Wan Qui-Gon examples that have always interested me the most. The most important point to start with is that not every Jedi was a proficient user of Force healing in Legends, with some not even being considered a mediocre talent with it. We've discussed it in a recent video, but one of the best examples of this is Anakin Skywalker. In the novel Star Wars: The Clone Wars Wild Space, it's revealed that a significant frustration for Anakin was his lack of healing talents. Despite being the believed chosen one of Jedi prophecy and having a midichlorian count higher than Yoda, he cursed the fact that he was entirely hopeless when it came to healing with the Force. This explains why Anakin wasn't able to simply heal his mother Shmi in Episode 2. As seen in Wild Space, even months later, when he was in a position that required the use of Force healing to rescue Obi-Wan after he was severely injured during an attack on Coruscant, Anakin was still hopeless with Force healing and didn't even attempt to use it, instead contacting the Jedi Temple so Jedi healers could attend to his former master. Force healing was an ability like any other. Like telekinesis or psychometry, it was an ability that some just seemed to be gifted at, or could learn far easier than others, and even Anakin Skywalker could never become a powerful user of Force healing. But the important point is in answering our initial question. This wasn't just true of Anakin, but of Jedi in general, and I think the point is demonstrated clearly within the Jedi Path manual. As explained by Jedi Master Sabla Mandabu, who chose the path of the Jedi Consular to study as a Jedi Seer, it was within the Jedi Consular school of thought and study where the greatest healers in the history of the Order emerged from. Consulars were one of 3 distinct schools of thought within the Jedi Order. Whereas Jedi Guardians dedicated themselves to specialize in combat, particularly lightsaber combat, and Jedi Sentinels dedicated themselves to filling a needed role within the Order by learning practical skills not connected to the Force, Jedi Consulars dedicated themselves to a path of harmony, and expressing this by finding and utilizing the peace within the Force. More than Guardians and Sentinels, it was among the Consulars where those Jedi with empathic talents were strongest, with a strong connection to the living Force. I'm not saying that there couldn't be crossover within the 3 schools of thought, where it's strictly held that if a Jedi committed themselves to one path, they would fundamentally lack the skills of the other path entirely. But without question, as Jedi healers were born out of the Jedi Consular class of Jedi, the ability of healing with the Force was something that wasn't only learned and skill-based within the class, but the greatest healers were those that had talents for it based on their own empathy and connection to the living Force. Just as some Jedi were weaker lightsaber duelists than others, not every Jedi pursued this path and had these talents. And for these Jedi like Anakin, they couldn't simply use Force healing to rescue others in every situation. Given that all of the greatest healers came from within the ranks of the Jedi Consular, combined with the talents required for it, masters of the ability would be rare. In fact, this is confirmed in the novel Wild Space, as Obi-Wan explained that Force healing was one of the rarest gifts achieved by a Jedi. But that brings us to our second point. What about situations where some amount of ability with Force healing was acquired but not used? The classic example here is Obi-Wan failing to use Force healing on Qui-Gon to save him in Episode 1. Based on Obi-Wan's actions with Luke in Episode 4, we know that unlike Anakin, Obi-Wan wasn't hopeless in the measure of his healing talents. In fact, the novel Wild Space includes scenes that suggest that Obi-Wan was quite proficient with Force healing as well. So why wouldn't he attempt to save Qui-Gon? A question that becomes even more troublesome given Rey's abilities that now exist within canon. First, the specific question relating to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon isn't answered easily merely by pointing out that Obi-Wan was a Padawan at the time. Barriss Offee was shown to be a powerful user of Force healing within Legends despite her position as a Padawan at the time. Legends provides the answer we're looking for, applicable to the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon situation, and more generally, for why it wasn't possible for Jedi to heal others in every situation. As revealed in Wildspace, there was a point where the injuries of an individual superseded the Force healing abilities of a Jedi. Obi-Wan was confronted with this reality in that novel when he was asked to use his healing talents on a woman named Alinta, who was just involved in a battle alongside the Jedi. Despite the fact that she was breathing and speaking, her injuries were quite gruesome, with dreadful wounds to her chest and stomach, and her right arm being broken in brutal ways. And this leaves aside her significant internal injuries. And yet, Obi-Wan still did attempt to use the Force to heal her, bending down to place a hand upon her forehead and turning his gaze inward. However, Obi-Wan would soon reveal the important point for our question here, apologizing and stating, quote, "Whatever talent I have for healing is insufficient to tend to her injuries." The point is clear. While Jedi might have talents with Force healing, they could only do so much in any given situation. I think this point is perfectly applicable to Obi-Wan's lack of healing with Qui-Gon. It was just too much, given that the Jedi Master had been fatally stabbed through the torso by Darth Maul's blade, with Obi-Wan not even having a chance to get to his master until he defeated Maul after his own duel with the Sith Lord. As Qui-Gon said to his Padawan immediately, it's too late. And given the injury and the limitations we've seen be placed on Force healing in Wildspace, Qui-Gon was right, as his injuries meant that whatever talent Obi-Wan had for healing was insufficient to tend to them. Just as Obi-Wan couldn't save Alinta, he couldn't save Qui-Gon. In Legends, Force healing was not a universally applicable Force ability, either among the Jedi or in every situation where someone needed to be healed. It was one of the Jedi Order's rarest gifts, excluding even the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. To be mastered, it required training as a consular, and even then, it was necessary for a proficient user to have empathic talents and a strong connection to the living Force. And just as important, Force healing was not an ability that could be used to heal any type of injury in all situations, as there reached a point for some Jedi where one's talents for healing were insufficient to meet the injuries they were facing. So there we have it, why Jedi couldn't use Force healing to save others in every situation within Legends. Thank you very much to all of the Patreon members of Star Wars Reading Club, as your support is so greatly appreciated. You can find all of our social media links and a link to our Star Wars gaming channel in the description below for updates and even more Star Wars content. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for Jedi Consulars.